Get out, you don't belong here. Who told you that a man like you could sit in first class? You better move before I call security. This isn't just another travel story. This is a tale of arrogance, humiliation, and the most expensive mistake an airline has ever made. If you're new here, pause right now and subscribe, because stories like this will light a fire in your chest and leave you speechless. And as you watch, I want you to tell me in the comments what country you're watching from, and if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now, because you don't want to miss what comes next. Marcus Davenport was a name the world respected, even if his face was not as public as the billionaires whose wealth screamed through flashy headlines. Marcus was different. He didn't flaunt. He didn't chase the spotlight. He let his empire speak for him, an empire that employed thousands, turned billions in annual revenue, and stretched across industries from tech to energy to finance. At 52, Marcus carried himself with the quiet dignity of a man who had seen both poverty and power, who had fought battles no one else could see, and who never forgot the struggles of his youth in a small southern town where racism wasn't hidden in whispers, it was shouted in the open. On that morning, Marcus was flying from London back to New York. He had spent weeks negotiating one of the largest deals of his career, a $2.3 billion partnership with a global airline that would not only expand his company's reach but also reshape international travel. The executives had been eager, even desperate, to secure his signature. For Marcus, this wasn't just about money. It was about legacy, about setting a new standard for Black leadership in industries where his people had been historically excluded. He dressed with precision that day. A tailored navy blue suit, freshly shined black shoes, a gold watch that had been a gift to himself after his first billion-dollar valuation. He looked every bit the executive he was, but Marcus had long since learned that no matter how he dressed, no matter how much wealth he carried, his skin color was the first thing people saw. At Heathrow Airport, the luxury lounge welcomed him without hesitation. He moved through security effortlessly, his boarding pass clearly marked. First class, Flight 784 to New York. He was calm, focused, already rehearsing the conversations that would take place at the skyscraper boardroom once he landed. The final signing was hours away, and with it, the culmination of months of work. But then came the moment that would change everything. As Marcus stepped onto the plane and made his way to the plush leather seat at the front of first class, a flight attendant intercepted him. She looked him up and down, her eyes narrowing, her lips tightening. Her voice was sharp, cutting, filled with disbelief. "Sir, can I see your ticket?" Marcus handed it over calmly. She glanced at it, then at him, then back again, her face curling with contempt. "This is first class," she said loudly enough for the surrounding passengers to hear. "Are you sure this is your seat?" A murmur ran through the cabin. Eyes turned toward him. Some passengers chuckled, others shook their heads in disapproval, as though the idea of a black man sitting in first class was offensive to them. Marcus said nothing. He simply gestured toward the seat number, printed clearly on the boarding pass. The attendant sighed, muttered something under her breath about people trying things they can't afford, and stepped aside reluctantly. Marcus slid into his seat, his face calm. But inside, a fire began to smolder. It wasn't the first time. It wouldn't be the last. But this time, the insult struck at the worst possible moment. As the plane lifted into the sky, Marcus stared out of the window, the vast blue horizon stretching endlessly. He thought of his grandmother, who used to tell him, "Baby, one day you'll sit where they say you don't belong, and when you do, make them regret ever doubting you." Those words echoed in his mind as the engines roared. The hours passed, but the sting of humiliation didn't fade. He thought about the billion-dollar deal awaiting him in New York, Thought about the airline executives who smiled in his face while their staff degraded him in the air. And slowly, a decision began to form. When the plane touched down, Marcus walked off with the same dignity he carried on. But behind that calm exterior, his resolve was solid as steel. A sleek black car waited for him at the tarmac, whisking him away to Manhattan. The skyscraper boardroom was filled with anticipation. Executives from the airlines sat around the polished mahogany table, pens ready, smiles wide. They had no idea what storm was about to descend. Marcus entered, his presence commanding immediate silence. He placed the folder containing the contract on the table. One of the executives leaned forward eagerly. "Mr. Davenport, shall we finalize this historic partnership?" Marcus didn't smile. He didn't sit. He pushed the folder back toward them. "The deal is off." The room froze. Confusion flickered across their faces, quickly turning to panic. "Off?" one of them stammered. "But why?" "We've agreed on everything. Terms, numbers, logistics. This deal is ready." Marcus's voice was steady, every word sharp enough to cut glass. "I was humiliated on your flagship flight today. Publicly, loudly, by your staff. If this is how you treat paying customers in first class, then you have no respect for the people who keep your business alive. I will not attach my company's name to an airline that values arrogance over dignity." Silence. Their smiles collapsed into disbelief. Their billions slipped through their fingers, undone not by numbers, but by disrespect. Marcus turned and walked out, leaving stunned executives in his wake. He didn't look back. He didn't need to. The decision was final. News spread like wildfire. Black CCO cancels. 2.3 deal with airline after humiliation in first class. Headlines erupted across the globe. Stock markets shook. The airline's reputation crumbled overnight. The attendant was fired, statements were issued, apologies were crafted, but none of it mattered. The world had already seen what arrogance cost them. For Marcus, it wasn't about revenge. It was about principle. It was about sending a message that dignity matters more than dollars, that respect is priceless, and that the days of silently enduring humiliation were over. And as he stood later in his penthouse office, overlooking the city skyline, Marcus Davenport knew he had done the right thing. The billions lost were not his loss, they were the airlines. His empire remained intact, his power unbroken, his legacy stronger than ever. Viewers, let this story burn in your memory. Never underestimate someone because of how they look, where they come from, or what seat they sit in. You never know when the person you're mocking holds the power to rewrite your future. Now it's your turn. Tell me in the comments, what country are you watching from? And if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. Because stories like this don't just entertain. They reveal the truth. They expose arrogance. And they remind us all that respect is non-negotiable. This is just the beginning. Stay locked in, because the next story will hit even harder. Subscribe now, drop your country below, and let's keep this fire burning.